Dan, a tough former soldier, walked past a mom asking for help on the street one morning. Used to dealing with hard times, he didn't stop to listen and kept going. But then, something clicked in his mind, and his face went white. He knew who she was, and he couldn't believe he had just walked past her. Dan was completely stopped in his tracks. He turned around, but saw that he was already too late. The mother and her 2 children had already disappeared. It was clear that they had recognized him as well, and a lot quicker. He looked around, panicking, hoping to see a glimpse of the woman. But all he saw were a lot of confused people looking in his direction. Dan went back to the spot where he saw the single mother and her children. He could clearly see that they got away in a rush after he passed them. A lot of what he assumed to be their items were still left there. And the more he looked at it, the more he realized that this woman and her children were living on the street here. Searching through the items, Dan's mind started going back to all those years ago, the moment that he had first seen this woman. He had still been with the military and was sent out on a mission to Iran. He still thought back to the meeting on occasion after the mission. But recently, this woman had not entered his thoughts anymore. Until now, that was. Dan doubted if his eyes had not just deceived him. Why would he encounter her here again, all the way in the States? Maybe it was just a case of mistaken identity. But then again, why would she have reacted that way? Their eyes met when they passed each other, and he could see that she recognized him. These were not just the begging looks of a homeless woman. This was something more. Dan looked round the street and saw that there were a couple more homeless people sitting around. He decided to go past them and ask if they had seen this woman and her children before. He knew this information would not come cheap, but luckily Dan always traveled with a bit of cash on his person. He gave the homeless people a bit of cash and asked them for information, and most of them were telling him the same story. The woman and her children had only gotten to this street a couple of days ago, but by the looks of things, they had been on the street for a while. However, it was not uncommon for a homeless parent to have to travel a lot. One homeless man explained this to Dan. The state does not care about homeless people, but they do care about homeless children, and when they find them, they will just take the children away from their parents, who in their eyes can't take care of the children, and put them in foster care. A nightmare for every parent, even those on the street. The homeless man had also seen everything that just happened. He saw how the eyes of the woman and Dan met, and when he continued to walk on, she immediately grabbed as much of her stuff as she could and told her children to follow her. They were out of there and into one of the many alleyways in seconds. It reminded him of when he himself had to run from the police. Dan took a quick glance into the alley, but of course the woman was not there anymore. Right then, he could have decided to just leave this encounter for what it was. Be unsure if it even was the same woman as years ago. Just forget about what happened all those years ago, and hope the thoughts would leave his mind again with time. But Dan simply could not do this. Now that he knew that this woman was so close to him, Dan knew that he was not going to be able to forget her. And in all honesty, he did not even want to. All those years ago when he was still in the military, he could not deal with this. Or at least, he really did not want to. But things were very different now, and it was time that he started to act like this was the case. He thanked the homeless man and quickly went there. Here he was going to start his mission to find and reconnect with the woman and her children. He anticipated that they were not easy to find, and so he had to come up with a good plan. And so Dan started by trying to learn as much as possible about the homeless population in the city. While the government was clearly not doing a lot to help solve this problem, there were a lot of organizations that did do their best to help. They ranged from food banks to places that gave away supplies and even a couple of homeless shelters. Dan compiled a list of all these places and attempted to contact them. He gave them the description of the woman and told her that she had 2 children with her, but almost none of the shelters were able to give him any information. They had seen a woman that matched her description, but it was not specific. They saw multiple women that a day that looked like here, and they almost never saw any children at all. Dan was thinking back to what the homeless man had told him about the government wanting to get children off the street. Maybe she and other homeless parents were scared to bring their children here. Maybe there was somebody watching who wanted to take the children away. It was clear to Dan that this was not the way to find her again. With a city map in hand, Dan embarked on his quest. Each location marked a beacon of hope in his search for the elusive woman. The map, dotted with homeless shelters and aid stations, represented a network of possibilities. Stepping into the city's vibrant life, Dan was driven by a deep sense of purpose, his resolve unwavering, his mission clear. The journey ahead was daunting, yet he felt ready to unravel the hidden stories of the city. Dan traversed the city streets, the woman's photograph in hand, a silent plea for recognition. Each shelter visit was a blend of hope and apprehension. He met countless faces, each carrying their own burden, but none held the key to the woman's identity. The photo, returning to his pocket unanswered, grew heavier with each attempt. This journey, weaving through the city's unseen corners, was more than a search. It was a quest for redemption. Inside the lively community center, Dan's hope rekindled. Here, amidst the hum of activity, he might find a clue. He showed the woman's photo to everyone, seeking any sign of recognition. Vague mentions of a woman with children surfaced, yet nothing concrete materialized. Each interaction, fruitless yet revealing, deepened Dan's resolve. Despite the lack of solid leads, he felt compelled to continue, driven by an unspoken promise to himself. As the day progressed, Dan's optimism waned under the weight of early frustrations. The search was proving more challenging than anticipated, each lead dissolving into uncertainty. Yet these setbacks only fortified his determination. The mission transcended the physical search. It was a journey towards understanding a past that haunted him. Despite the growing challenges, Dan's resolve remained steadfast, fueled by an inner strength he hadn't known he possessed. The day ended with Dan reflecting on his purpose. In the quiet of the evening, he reassessed his strategy, his mind racing with thoughts of the woman and her possible whereabouts. The frustrations of the day transformed into a renewed resolve. Tomorrow, he would continue, armed with a deeper understanding of the task at hand. The search was more than finding a person. It was a journey towards resolving a chapter of his life, yet unwritten. Dan's search continued as he conversed with street vendors and locals, each conversation a thread in the tapestry of the city's narrative. Their stories, laced with bits of information about a woman with 2 children, were like puzzle pieces waiting to be connected. Some had seen her, a fleeting glimpse in the crowded streets. Others merely heard whispers. Dan listened intently, noting every detail, his resolve undiminished. As Dan wandered the streets, a familiar face emerged from the past. An old acquaintance, now living on the edges of society, recognized the woman in the photograph. He spoke of seeing her in a distant part of the city, a potential lead that reignited Dan's hope. This encounter, unexpected yet fortuitous, steered Dan's search in a new direction, towards a place he had not yet explored. Through his interactions, Dan began to understand the tight-knit community of the homeless. He learned of their protective nature, how they looked out for one another in a world that often overlooked them. This sense of community was a stark contrast to his own isolated existence. It dawned on him that in this network of solidarity, information flowed in hushed tones, guarded yet accessible to those who showed genuine respect. In a chance encounter, a homeless man recalled seeing a woman with 2 children, fitting Dan's description. His words were a beacon in the dimming light of Dan's search. The man described the direction they had headed, a detail that could lead Dan closer to finding them. This glimmer of hope, faint yet undeniable, bolstered Dan's spirits as the day neared its end. As dusk settled, Dan ended his day by mapping out the sightings and information he had gathered. His room became a makeshift command center, with notes and maps spread across any available surface. Slowly, a clearer picture began to form, a trail emerging from the scattered clues. Each piece of information, however small, was a step closer to finding the woman and her children, a journey inching towards resolution. In his relentless search, Dan found himself at a local soup kitchen. The air was filled with the aroma of warm meals and the buzz of conversation. As he spoke with a worker, a flicker of recognition crossed their face. They recalled a woman with children, a detail that resonated with Dan's quest. This encounter, in a place of refuge and kindness, offered a new lead, breathing life into his search. The soup kitchen worker paused, gathering their thoughts, and then offered a detailed description. The woman they described matched Dan's memories almost perfectly. She had a distinct look in her eyes, a mix of determination and weariness, and her children, always close by her side. These details painted a vivid picture in Dan's mind, reigniting the vivid memories he held of her. As he interacted with the soup kitchen staff, Dan was struck by the warmth and compassion that filled the space. Here, in this humble kitchen, the community came together to support those in need. Dan found himself grateful for their kindness and the sense of hope they fostered. It was a reminder that even in the toughest times, humanity's warmth could still be found. With a new lead in hand, Dan set out to follow the trail. He visited the areas the soup kitchen worker had mentioned, his eyes searching every face he passed. Each street corner, each alleyway held the potential of bringing him closer to her. The city seemed different now, each part intertwined with the possibility of their reunion. As the day drew to a close, Dan found a quiet spot to reflect on his progress. The day's events filled him with a mix of hope and anxiety. Each lead, each piece of information brought him closer, yet the uncertainty lingered. He knew his journey was far from over, but the day's discoveries bolstered his resolve. Tomorrow, he would continue, one step closer to finding her. Dan's journey took a disheartening turn when a lead he had been following culminated in a false sighting. The disappointment was palpable, a heavy weight on his shoulders. He had been so certain this time, only to be met with the stark reality of another dead end. The streets, once filled with possibility, now echoed with the hollow sound of missed opportunities. Navigating the transient community of the homeless presented unique challenges. Dan realized that in this ever-shifting landscape, finding one person was like searching for a needle in a haystack. The elusive nature of the streets, where faces and stories blurred together, made his quest even more daunting. Yet, he persisted, driven by the unyielding desire to find the woman and her children. Amidst the sprawling city, Dan found himself grappling with a moment of doubt. The vastness of the urban expanse seemed to mock his efforts. Could he really find her in this maze of streets and faces? The question hung heavily in the air, challenging his resolve. It was a sobering reminder of the magnitude of his task. Just when Dan's spirits were at their lowest, a stranger's kindness rekindled his hope. This unexpected encounter brought words of encouragement, a simple gesture that lifted Dan's spirits. The stranger's belief in his mission reminded Dan that sometimes the support we need comes from the most unexpected places. Bolstered by this encounter, Dan felt a renewed sense of purpose. As the day drew to a close, Dan stood under the fading light, a renewed determination settling in his heart. Despite the day's setbacks and challenges, he vowed to continue his search. The journey might be long and fraught with obstacles, but Dan was ready to face them head-on. His resolve was unwavering. He would find her, no matter how long it took. Dan's mind often wandered back to Iran, the origin of this mysterious connection. There, Amidst duty and uncertainty, he had encountered her. Each memory was a mosaic of sights, sounds, and emotions, vivid yet fragmented. These reflections were more than just remnants of the past. They were subtle guides leading him through his current quest. He pondered their shared moments, each recollection a piece of the puzzle he was desperately trying to solve. Contemplating his past, Dan began to unravel possible reasons for her journey to the States. His own experiences in Iran, marked by complexity and challenge, offered insights into her potential motives. This understanding bridged the gap between past and present, painting her not just as a memory, but as a woman striving for a new beginning. Empathizing with her plight, Dan saw her journey as a reflection of hope amidst desperation. In the solitude of his thoughts, Dan faced the emotional toll of his military service. These scars, unseen yet profound, had shaped his life in ways he was just beginning to understand. Acknowledging them was a painful process, yet essential for his healing. This introspection revealed how his past experiences were intertwined with his current mission, driving his need to find her and, perhaps, find a measure of peace. As Dan pored over his collected information, patterns started to emerge from the chaos. The scattered sightings and whispered stories now pointed to a specific area where she might be. This revelation, born from relentless pursuit and keen observation, refocused his search with newfound intensity. Armed with this promising lead, Dan felt a surge of hope. It was a trail he was determined to follow, one that he hoped would reunite them. That restless night, Dan lay awake, haunted by a cascade of memories and the weight of his quest. The hours passed with him, sifting through each detail, each fragment of his past with her, and every clue gathered. The quiet darkness of the night became a canvas for his thoughts, a time for piecing together the elusive puzzle. With each ticking moment, his resolve to continue the search at dawn only strengthened. Dan's search led him to a secluded area, whispered about in hushed tones by those he had spoken to. This hidden part of the city, shrouded in quiet and shadow, held the potential of her presence. As he stepped into this forgotten corner, a mix of anticipation and apprehension filled him. The very air seemed to hum with the possibility that she had been here, that he was closer than ever to finding her. In this secluded space, Dan began a meticulous search. He moved carefully, his eyes scanning for any trace of the woman and her children. Every overturned stone, every displaced piece of earth seemed to hold a story. The silence of the area was punctuated only by his steady footsteps and the beating of his own heart. With each step, the hope that had been a distant flicker grew brighter within him. As Dan explored, subtle signs hinted at recent habitation. A makeshift shelter, remnants of a small fire pit, and discarded items that seemed to have been used recently. Each of these signs was a silent testament to the presence of someone, fueling Dan's belief that she had been here with her children. These small, almost imperceptible clues were like whispers, guiding him further into the mystery he was so determined to unravel. Realizing the importance of this area, Dan decided to wait, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman. He found a discreet spot where he could observe without being seen. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as he watched and waited. Each passing moment was a test of patience, a balance between hope and the fear of another disappointment. Yet Dan remained steadfast, his gaze never wavering from the task at hand. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the secluded area, Dan took a moment to reflect. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the twists and turns, the highs and lows. The setting sun seemed to mirror his own inner journey, a blend of darkness and light. Despite the challenges, Dan felt a sense of calm. He was close, he could feel it. Tomorrow, he believed, might bring the moment he had been longing for. At dawn, Dan discovered a hidden encampment. There, he finally found the woman and her children. a sight that halted him in his tracks. His heart swelled with a mix of emotions as he took in the scene before him. The years of searching had led to this moment, a poignant realization of his quest. The sight of them, living in such conditions, stirred a profound sense of urgency and compassion within him. The woman's initial reaction was one of hesitation. Recognizing Dan, her eyes filled with a complex blend of recognition and caution. It was clear she remembered him, yet the years had erected a barrier of uncertainty and survival instincts. Her protective gaze over her children spoke volumes of her life since they last met. Dan stood there, understanding her wariness, knowing he had to tread carefully to gain her trust. To ease the palpable tension, Dan spoke softly, reminiscing about their shared past in Iran. Each memory he shared was a delicate attempt to bridge the gap time had created. His words, tinged with nostalgia and regret, seemed to slowly reach her. This shared history, spoken in hushed tones, started to weave a fragile thread of connection between them, a tentative step towards understanding. Their conversation unleashed a flood of emotions, memories, some sweet, others painful, cascaded between them. Dan listened, his heart heavy, as she recounted her journey since their last encounter. Each word she spoke was a testament to her resilience and strength. This outpouring of past experiences and feelings marked a pivotal moment in their reunion, a chance to truly see and understand each other once more. In this exchange, a profound understanding and empathy began to take root. Dan grasped the enormity of her struggles and admired her resilience. She, in turn, saw the genuine remorse and empathy in his eyes. This newfound understanding bridged the gap of years and circumstances, offering a glimpse of hope. It was a moment of mutual recognition, a realization that their shared past could pave the way for healing and reconciliation. In the quiet of their newfound connection, the woman began to share her story. She spoke of the hardships that led to her current situation, her voice a soft but steady stream of resilience and sorrow. Her tale was one of survival against the odds, marked by moments of despair and strength. Dan listened, his heart heavy with empathy, as she unraveled the tapestry of her life since they had parted. Her journey from Iran to the States was a testament to her courage. She recounted the obstacles she faced, the constant challenges of navigating a new life in an unfamiliar land. Her narrative was punctuated with struggles and small victories, a relentless pursuit of stability and safety for her children. Dan was captivated, each word painting a vivid picture of her relentless determination and the sacrifices she made along the way. Amidst her story, a startling truth emerged. The woman revealed that her oldest daughter was Dan's child, conceived during their time together in Iran. This revelation hit Dan like a wave, a tumultuous mix of shock, disbelief, and a dawning sense of responsibility. The weight of this newfound truth settled heavily upon him, rewriting the narrative of his past and reshaping the contours of his future. Dan found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The revelation of his newfound fatherhood brought a complex blend of shock, guilt, and a sense of overwhelming responsibility. He wrestled with the implications of this truth, the years of unknowing, and the sudden shift in his identity. This moment of reckoning was a profound turning point, forcing him to reevaluate his past and the role he would play in their lives. As the initial shock began to subside, Dan slowly embraced his newfound role as a father. He cautiously began to bond with his daughter, each interaction a delicate dance of joy and regret. In her, he saw reflections of himself and the woman he once knew. This new bond, fragile yet profound, was a beacon of hope amidst the complexities of their situation, a chance to build a future on the foundations of a shared past. With a newfound sense of purpose, Dan offered immediate assistance to the woman and her children. He dedicated himself to finding them a stable living situation, a sanctuary from the uncertainties of their past. His actions were fueled by a desire to provide safety and comfort, to right the wrongs of the years they spent apart. This gesture of support was his first step in forging a new path for them. Dan's commitment extended beyond immediate needs. He helped the woman explore job opportunities, tapping into his own network and resources. Simultaneously, he prioritized the children's education, ensuring they had access to the learning and growth they deserved. This fresh start was about laying a foundation for their future, about giving them the tools and opportunities to thrive in a world that had once seemed so unforgiving. As days turned into weeks, Dan spent time with his daughter, tentatively building a relationship that had never been given a chance to blossom. Each moment they shared was precious, a chance to make up for the time lost. In her laughter and curiosity, Dan found a joy he hadn't known he was missing. This burgeoning bond was a delicate yet vital part of their new beginning. The process of healing was gradual for Dan and the woman. They supported each other through the complexities of their intertwined histories. Conversations often delved into past wounds, but also into dreams and aspirations. This mutual support became a cornerstone of their relationship, a shared journey of healing. Together, they began to mend the fragments of their past, paving the way for a future filled with understanding and compassion. In this new chapter of their lives, Dan, the woman, and the children began to form a new family dynamic. It was an amalgamation of their past experiences and their hopes for the future. This family, unconventional yet filled with love, was a testament to their resilience and the power of second chances. Together, they were building a life that blended the memories of what was with the dreams of what could be. In this new chapter of life, Dan wholeheartedly embraced his role as a father and partner. The responsibility, once a source of overwhelming shock, now became a wellspring of purpose and love. He devoted himself to being present for his family, to be the support and strength they needed. This acceptance marked a profound shift in his identity, one that filled him with a sense of completeness he had never known. With each passing day, Dan found a renewed sense of purpose in caring for his family. Their well-being and happiness became his guiding light, the focus of his efforts and aspirations. He took joy in the small moments, the daily triumphs and challenges that come with family life. This newfound purpose gave him a sense of direction and fulfillment, anchoring him in a reality he had once thought unattainable. Together, the family embarked on the journey of building a stable and loving home. It was a collaborative effort, each member contributing their own unique strengths and quirks. Their home became a symbol of their resilience and unity, a haven where laughter and love resounded. This process of building a life together strengthened their bond, turning a once broken story into a narrative of hope and togetherness. In quiet moments, Dan reflected on the incredible journey that led him to this point. His heart swelled with gratitude and love for the family he now had. He thought about the struggles, the serendipitous encounters, and the choices that shaped their path. These reflections brought a deeper understanding of love and duty, reinforcing his commitment to being there for his family in every way he could. As the story of Dan and his family drew to a close, they stood together, looking forward to a future filled with hope and unity. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but it had led them to this moment of togetherness. With each other's support, they faced the horizon, ready to embrace the adventures and possibilities that lay ahead. Their story, a tapestry of past and present, was a testament to the enduring power of love and resilience.